the Blue White Breakdown. It's Thursday. It's noon on August 14th. Johnny McGonigal, Max Ralph with all of the Cubs jerseys behind them. It's the noon live show. It's the Thursday
Right.
noon live show on the Blue White Breakdown. This is what we do, Max.
That's right.
This is what we do.
Yeah.
We're 2 weeks away ish, a little bit more than 2 weeks away from the Penn State opener against Nevada. How you feeling? How you been, man?
I'm feeling great. I appreciate the shout out for the Cubs jerseys. This was my new addition to my new apartment that I've moved into. Some wall decorations in the form of these jerseys. An idea I had that I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. And I also just this morning just got the last piece of furniture into the place. I had a friend come over, help me get my dresser into my bedroom. I've been living out of a suitcase for a couple of weeks. Finally got a sweet dresser deal on Facebook Marketplace. Was listening to A Day to Remember this morning, Johnny. I think the vibes are good, so I hope you can say the same.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it might as well be the weekend, right?
That's right.
You got a new dresser on Facebook Marketplace. You're listening to some ADTR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen,
what could be better?
Big Facebook Marketplace advocate because this entire apartment has been decked out with stuff that I found there. So I got to say, if you're not on the wave, you got to hop on.
I love it. I didn't use that at all when I moved into my place here in Philly. It was more of a wayfare and get some stuff in here quickly kind of deal.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, don't knock until you try it. So I don't blame you at all there, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Max, we've got a lot of Penn State football to talk about today. As I mentioned, just a little over 2 weeks away from the season opener. Camp is a couple weeks in, training camp, fall camp, preseason camp, whatever you want to call it. Camp is camp, and players are playing, and guys are making moves and turning heads. And I know you were up there at practice on Tuesday night up in State College and got to talk to James Franklin, some coaches and players after. And you got to take a look at the Nittany Lions, where they're at, obviously less than a month away from that opener, from a very highly anticipated 2025 season. So, Max, I kind of want to throw it to you to start and, just to get the ball rolling. What is the one thing the primary takeaway, the one thing or player, or person, a person, place, or thing, if you will, that stood out to you most from Tuesday night?
I think from Tuesday night, the thing that stands out to me most, Johnny, is Chaz Coleman, freshman defensive end from the Cleveland area. James Franklin absolutely gushed about this guy. Honestly, unlike we usually hear from him on anybody who hasn't been in the program for 3 or 4 years already. He started talking about him, and then he just kept going on and on and on, and it seemed kind of endless. The freshman defensive end, we've talked about it enough. That position group needs some depth. There were some question marks. Some guys were going to have to show up. It sounds like Chaz Coleman, as well as Ivan Kamaju, who we've talked about a little bit, but Chaz Coleman could really be the guy who was not on our radar that is going to step up. Deion Barnes told me it was going to happen when we talked to him in June, or actually I think that was May. He told me that was going to happen. It sounds like it's happening. This kid came in the summer. He was not an early enrollee. He came in the summer, said he's already put on 25 pounds, and I believe it. Looking at him out there on the field, looks really good. And the other thing, which James Franklin said this, he still looks kind of skinny. I think there's still some room for him to put some weight on. He had elite basketball tape. I mean, it's beyond I don't know what kind of offers he had to play D1 basketball, but the dude could jump out of the gym. He is a fantastic athlete, played some high school quarterback before he ended up switching to defensive end and getting some of that his senior year. He's come to Penn State and is really putting it on the field. I think the athlete is absolutely there. Like you said, coaching staff loves him already. I think it was Jim Knowles. You can read it in Bob Flounder's story over on PennLive. Jim Knowles called him the Chazmanian Devil. Got a great nickname already. The kid's a great athlete. As long as he can put it together scheme-wise and refine the pass rushing, it sounds like he's a guy who's going to help them this fall at a position where they need it.
Yeah, and one other thing that stood out to me, from James Franklin's comments on Tuesday night, obviously he's flashed. Chaz Coleman has flashed as a player. That athleticism, like you mentioned, high-level basketball player in high school quarterback for a while, that has translated, that has shown up, that athleticism. But also just the attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like coming in as a freshman, James Franklin said we take a lot of pride in the locker room and how we leave the facility. And he's in there the other night. Everybody's out of the locker room, and he's picking up towels and putting things away. He's a yes sir, no sir guy, extremely humble. And so the other thing too is James was saying, we talk to these freshmen all the time, and we ask them if they think that they're red, yellows, or greens in terms of the green light, yellow light, red light, in terms of red shirting. And, Chaz said that he was a yellow, and everyone in the room is kind of looking at him like, dude, you ain't a yellow. Like he is looking like a green light guy, like you mentioned too, Yvonne Kamaju and Darius Dixon, the corner from out in California, who really popped in that blue white game, literally popped because of that hit that he laid in the spring game. Started that hype train, and he's been going ever since, and got a lot of really good publicity, a lot of high marks from Jim Knowles in that media day press conference a couple weeks ago. But Chaz Coleman is looking like a real green light guy, and they need it. Like we've talked about this defensive end room ad nauseum this offseason. Obviously Abdul Carter moves on to the NFL. Amin Vanover, his NCAA waiver is denied. And then you have Max Granville suffering the injury that he suffered in the offseason. And so you enter this year with Denai Dennis Sutton feeling really good about him. Zariah Fisher feeling good about him as a veteran, as a senior who has dealt with injuries in the past, but has really impressed in the Lasch building. And there's a lot of belief in him. But then it's like beyond those guys, where else? Where's the production going to come from? And it very well could come from Chaz Coleman.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we kind of had our eyes on a guy like Jalen Harvey, Malachi Williams. I think the coaching staff has brought up Mason Robinson's name a few times. For a while, we thought it could be Eni White coming over from Texas A&M. If you missed that, he's switching to defensive tackle, so that's not going to happen. But I think Chaz Coleman and Yvonne Kamaju are the guys who we weren't talking about that are going to start needing to be talked about because, I mean, every team has to have it, right? Like freshmen have to come in. They have to outperform expectations on any team that's going to go somewhere. Not every single player on the field is going to be a senior, a junior. There are going to be freshmen and redshirt freshmen, guys who have not seen the field before that have to step up and make an impact. And for Penn State especially, defensive end was one of the positions where that had to happen. I think we'll maybe talk about another position where that could happen here in a little bit, but defensive end was absolutely one of, if not the position where Penn State had to have some guys step up, and it really sounds like it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, not every freshman is going to have the impact that Jeremiah Smith had last year.
Correct.
For Ohio State. Like that is the extreme example. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking at this team like we did throughout the offseason, and you saw all these guys come back, Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Katron, Denai, Zane, et cetera, Zaki Wheatley. Like the list goes on of the number of players who are returning with a lot of starting experience, with a lot of high-level production. But like that can't cover the entire roster. It's just impossible to do that. There's always going to be a hole or two or a question mark or two. Penn State, doesn't have any major ones, but the major one within the Lasch building, at least entering fall camp, was probably defensive end, defensive tackle depth. And the fact that Chaz Coleman has been able to answer the bell, and like James Franklin, Deion Barnes, these guys wouldn't hype up a freshman just to hype them up. Like
no.
There's no reason to. Like if Chaz Coleman was performing at the level of insert, third year defensive end name here, and he's just been like whatever, like James Franklin's not going to go out of his way to say all the great things he said about Chaz Coleman. So, you don't need to be Jeremiah Smith. You don't need to be like an all-world player as a true freshman, especially as a defensive end or defensive lineman in general. But when you're looking at this team and they need a pop, they need some juice, off the edge, at least in a rotational role, it's a really good sign that Chaz Coleman is getting this kind of publicity early, this kind of talk. You just got to continue to build on that.
Yeah. To use a baseball analogy with the jerseys sitting behind me, teams have to have guys outperform expectations. You put a roster out on the field, projections happen, especially in baseball, because like everything is numbers and projections in baseball. I mean, it's getting there in football, but it's not nearly as bad. Guys have to outperform their expectations. It sounds like the freshmen are where that's coming from. Want to give a reminder to our live audience that this is live. Make sure you're dropping comments, questions, concerns in the chat. We will make sure to get to them whenever we can. We've had a really good couple of weeks here since fall camp started, so let's keep that rolling today. Johnny, let's move on to another position group that I wanted to highlight from practice, and specifically another player who happens to be a freshman. But this wide receiving core, obviously, we don't really need to rehash why this position is under the microscope, why they could use help from wherever they can get it. That's pretty clear. I think that the returns for me on Kyron Hudson and Triber Pena are really good. Pena runs routes like I've said this before on the podcast. I think he runs routes like, nobody at Penn State has since probably Jahan Dotson. The guy looks really smooth. He's quick. He can get open. Kyron Hudson, great body. I think they're going to be able to use him on the goal line, on third down situations. Could wind up being Drew Aller's number one target. He's leading the lines, every time they're in drills. Really good. I think the top group of wide receivers is starting to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. We saw them split up on Tuesday between Drew Aller, and it was actually Ethan Grunkemeyer as the other quarterback with this group on Tuesday. That's switched a few times. I don't want to put too much stock in that yet, but worth mentioning. Ethan Grunkemeyer was the number 2. But the wide receivers with him, Kyron Hudson, Traber Pena, Devontae Ross, Liam Clifford. Those are 4 we kind of expected. You also get Tysier Denmark, probably expected considering all the buzz that he's gotten. And then the 2 that were maybe a little more surprising in that group are Aaron Ennerline, who is a redshirt freshman, was a walk-on to get here, and Kobe Howard, a true freshman, who I don't know if you've been following closely. It's maybe not a huge surprise, but they're looking for a spark. And right now, Johnny, it sounds like Kobe Howard could be that guy. I'll dive into why in a second. But if you have just a quick takeaway from that group of wide receivers or anything, lay it on me.
Shout out Aaron Ennerline. If that's anything to really hang your hat, like that's something to hang your hat on if you're working with the ones, if you're working with that group as a walk on, but. Really, I'm not surprised with the 3 transfers, obviously. Like, they went out and got those 3, Pena, Ross, and Hudson, for this reason. They needed to overhaul this wide receiver room. We know that whole story from last year. Not surprised Liam Clifford's in the mix there because he is such like a program guy, an institutional guy. He knows the offense probably as good as anyone not named Drew Aller, I would guess. That's kind of one of the reasons why he has such a good rapport with Drew. That showed over the years in practice, even going back to when Drew was a freshman and getting some run there in a different offense, in a different scheme. Yeah. But Kobe Howard, I love this for him. You talk about a freshman coming in and making an impact, and a guy who dealt with injury as a high school prospect. I believe he broke his leg, right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that Penn State stuck with him, and I know that was a big reason why he came and stayed with Penn State. Throughout his recruitment, like I really think that he is a guy who he's a smaller player, but at the same time, has some serious juice. And I love the story that Marcus Hagans told you. I didn't want to step on your toes here because you wrote a lot about Kobe Howard, which PennLive readers, subscribers, listeners, if you haven't already, go check that out to get more insight. But I just need you to tell this story to everyone.
Yeah.
To everyone who's joined.
Yeah, absolutely. If you missed it, I put a story up on PennLive about Kobe here this morning. I also did a story back when Kobe was still a recruit that I think turned out really well. Interesting on like you mentioned, his broken leg, his journey, and everything. Kid's been through a little bit as a recruit, and so I brought that up to Marcus Hagans on Tuesday. Somebody else asked him about Kobe and just what he's shown so far, and I followed up. I said, look, he had kind of an interesting recruitment. From the fact that he had this major injury, he transferred schools. He committed kind of late, but he told me you guys stayed on him the whole time. And Hagans goes, yeah, okay. So he's playing in Florida. They play spring ball down there. That was the time when I got to see him most. And we're out at a practice, and I'm watching him, and he just goes play after play after play. Head coach down there, Damian Jones, calls 10 passing plays in a row. And he even tells the defense, the ball is going to Kobe Howard, and he's going after DB after DB after DB. Hagans makes sure to mention, look, Chaminade Madonna is a good school. They play good competition in Florida. They have talent every year, and Kobe is just beating defensive back after defensive back 10 plays in a row. So as they get down to the 2-yard line, and they end up throwing it to him on a fade one last time. He makes the play over the DB. It wins the practice for the offense. And Marcus Higgins tells us he's sitting there. He used a word that we won't repeat on the podcast, but he just goes, man, like, that's it. Like, I can tell he's going to be something. Like, right there, Higgins really amped up. Like, he's usually a pretty reserved guy. This week, I felt like he was in a really good mood. I thought he was, energetic and had really good things to say about the receiving core. But yeah, this Kobe Howard story was great. You can see it when he's out at practice. He's a little bit raw still in his route running, in my opinion. But the kid is built like he kind of reminds me of Doug Martin, the muscle hamster. In his he's got 200 pounds packed into that 5'11" frame. Like, he's beefy. I'm not gonna lie. He looks good for a freshman. And Kyron Hudson said the same thing. I think he's a really good player. He wasn't among the names that James Franklin said right away when he was asked about guys who are trending toward green light status. But the way Marcus Higgins talked about him, the way we've seen him operating in practice to this point, I really would not be surprised to see if he's at minimum in the conversation, week one, because they've got the runway to get some guys some reps.
Yeah, when I said Kobe's a smaller guy, I meant just height-wise, right?
Right.
5'11", right?
Yeah.
So he's not a Kyron Hudson out there. But at the same time, incredible callback.
Thank you.
Doug Martin, the muscle hamster. He was a fantasy football guy.
Legend.
For a hot minute.
Like 2 seasons. He was incredible.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have him, but no one cares about your fantasy teams. Everyone knows that. No, but I love the comp. And look, if Kobe Howard can provide anything for this offense, like, it's one of those where they've committed resources, they've committed, obviously time and energy, recruiting in the portal, the 3 guys that they got, but also financial resources as well. Like, they went and attacked this portal and got those 3 guys knowing that they would be big parts of the offense. And so will Luke Reynolds, and so will Khalil Dinkins and Rapelier and even Nick Singleton and Katron Allen in the passing game. Like, there are a lot of mouths to feed in this offense, and more specifically in the passing offense too. I don't know if you've ever heard this, Max, but there's 1 ball.
Really?
Yeah, stunning development. Wow. They don't play with more than 1 out there. But if Kobe Howard is able to provide anything, I think it's just an added bonus. If anything, if it doesn't come this year, which obviously they would love it to, if it doesn't come this year, it's at least a really good sign, going into 2026 and even 2027, as he could emerge as a potential number 1, like, looking down the line. Like, that's probably not going to happen this year. But you look down the line, you want to see these early signs from these freshmen. You want to see it from Kobe Howard and from Darius Dixon and from Chaz Coleman. Like, these are the kind of things that when we heard, and I think we'll see really good things from Cooper Cousins this upcoming season. But you go back a year and you start hearing, early on when they're freshmen, coaches talk, about players like this kind of matters, and you clock it. And if it doesn't show up immediately, it will later. Yeah.
Johnny, we got a handful of comments here from Broski Bear that I want to make sure we get to. Appreciate you being active here today. So first of all, Travis Henry and Doug Martin each had 2 seasons that won fantasy leagues. Appreciate the shout. I like that. Travis Henry's predates my fantasy playing. I don't know about you, Johnny, but that's a great poll.
It doesn't predate me, but like there is like a 7-year gap in between you and I.
That's correct. Yeah. So 7. Yeah, I think that's right. So I was playing fantasy football pretty young.
But no. Maybe even more. Maybe even because how old are you? Let's do.
I'm 23.
Okay, I'm 32. So 9.
9. Okay. Yeah. Well, close enough.
Yeah. So you don't remember Travis Henry? That's okay.
So looking to the Oregon game, are you concerned that PSU won't be nearly as battle tested? I think this is a topic that we've hit on maybe once before in the summer, Johnny, but I really feel like there are 2 ways to look at this because it's interesting. Like, you can look at that runway of 3 games against Cupcakes to start the season as they can maybe look ahead to Oregon through that whole time and start game planning a little bit. You can also look at they're going to get some of these young guys that they need to count on, some extra reps, and they'll be ready for game action. I think those 2 things are really big. But I also do think that I think it's a genuine factor. You want your team to have gone through adversity, in order to face a tough opponent like that. I mean, look at the USC game last year. They ended up winning that. And I think that experience really paid dividends when they go down and struggle against Minnesota. Like, I think that those things stack up. So I think you can look at it both ways. I'm not necessarily worried about it, but Oregon does have a couple of at least Power 4 opponents. They're not necessarily like Ohio State versus Texas level games, but I think they get Northwestern early in the season and also Oregon State. So, they'll have some serious competition to some level early in the season that I think is valuable, at least.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. But I think we're good now. We're good.
Yeah, I got you here, Johnny. I got you.
All right. Sorry about that.
No worries.
On me. But to answer to follow up and to answer the question, like, I'm not worried about it personally. Like, I get the sentiment. I get the sentiment of, like, you don't have a power conference not a power conference team coming in and playing in the non-conference. You don't have a West Virginia. You don't have an Auburn. You don't have a team like that to kind of get the juices flowing in week 1 or week 2 before you start the Big Ten stretch. And of course, you start the Big Ten schedule with your probably second hardest game of the year, and probably a top 5 matchup, top 10 matchup in the AP poll. So I understand that, but at the same time, I don't think Penn State is going to need like any convincing to get up for this game. It's a whiteout, it's a home game. Everyone understands the stakes behind it. So I don't think there's any concern there. I think these 3 games against FIU, Nevada, and Villanova, like you mentioned, Max, is really big for the younger guys to be able to get some action. Like, Denai Dennis-Sutton has played in the CFP, right? Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, these guys who are the core, the foundation of this team, the majority of the starters on this team have been through a long CFP run. They've played Ohio State. They've done this before. They know the level. I mean, they played Oregon last year in the Big Ten championship game. So a lot of these players, it's a different Oregon team, almost like completely, given how much they lost to the draft. But they've played this level of competition before, so I'm not worried there. It's really would just be the younger guys who have not faced a team like that. But for them, it's just playing time is key regardless of who it's against. Snaps are key regardless of who it's against. And so I think having those first 3 games is really big for a Darius Sixton, a Chaz Coleman, and some of the guys even Trevor Pena, even Kyron Hudson. In terms of getting acclimated to the system and getting on the same page with Drew and everything that goes along with that.
Yeah, so I don't know. To answer the question in short, I wouldn't say I'm concerned about not being battle tested. I think it adds value to have faced some adversity before you play in a game like that. But I wouldn't say it's a concern. Like, Johnny, you made a great point. Like, they're not going to need any convincing to get up for that one. So I think it's something to take into consideration. I wouldn't call it a concern. Another question from Broski Bear. What are your expectations for the tight end room this season, especially Luke Reynolds? I think, I'll turn this one over to you, but real quickly, like, I have high expectations. I think the room's, it's hard to lose Tyler Warren and say, like, shrug it off, no big deal. But I'm kind of at a point where I'm saying shrug it off, it's no big deal.
Yeah, I'm not there. I know it's like in jest a little bit because you don't replace 1-for-1 a player that had 1,200 yards, won the Mackey Award, first round pick, all that.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned though with the tight end room, and that's based on like just past history. Mm-hmm. Like when you go from, and again, Tyler Warren is 1 of 1, but you look at how Penn State has developed that tight end room, and not just under Ty Howell, but even going further back, really since James Franklin got here. The kind of players that they've had: Mike Gesicki, Pat Fryermuth, Brenton Strange, Theo Johnson. Like, I know I'm missing a name or 2 in there, but at the same time, like, this group has consistently been a strength of this team, and I see no reason why that would be any different. Like, Khalil Dinkins And James Franklin likes to do the whole, like, this guy is not being talked about enough. He can't do that with Zane Durant anymore, by the way.
No.
He just can't. Like, last year it played,
Yeah.
even the year before the year before that it definitely played, but last year it played a little bit. He can't do that anymore with Zane. With Khalil Dinkins, I think it's fair because, everyone has gone from Tyler Warren to, okay, Luke Reynolds is going to be the next guy. Khalil Dinkins, I think, is a solid player, but I love what I've seen from Luke. Everything the coaches and the players have said, throughout the offseason leads me to believe that he's going to make good on that 5-star status. And, we didn't see a whole lot of him. I mean, we saw more of him last year than I thought we would. Because of that injury to Rapp earlier in the season. And I think that's valuable experience. But yeah, I think Reynolds is due for a big year.
Yep, I agree. I think Khalil Dinkins, look, if James says something like that, he's doing it for a reason. I think he's going to have a great year. I think he's the best run blocker on the team. Honestly, I think he was last year too, even with Tyler Warren in tow. And I think Luke Reynolds has the receiving skills to compete with the best of them. He's basically a wide receiver there. Z-Man, their best test before Oregon will be in practice. I agree. When they go good on good, they're not gonna have a lot of games harder than when they go good on good in practice. So good point. Broski Bear, one more quick that I will hit. Who will be PSU's third running back? Not an answer right now because we just don't have it. As James Franklin said, guys have been banged up back and forth, not practicing every single time. This week, they were without Quentin Martin, Corey Smith, and Cam Wallace, who are all really the guys that we probably would have pegged as the third running back. Maybe they'll be back next week. We'll see. If all things are equal, if everybody's healthy, from what I've seen this offseason, from what I've heard, I think I'd probably go with Quentin Martin. I think he's made a big step, and I think the fact that he played some wide receiver in high school, the fact that they can do a lot of different things with him, I think that gives him a leg up. Cam Wallace won it last year, dealing with that injury. I don't know that he looks fully himself yet. James Franklin said day by day he's getting there. But I think I'd probably go Quentin Martin. However, I say that with a caveat that, like, Corey Smith makes some really big plays. He's going to be a good running back. And Tyke Hayes and Jabri Coleman, the freshman, like, those two kids are good, man. I anticipate that they'll try and preserve the red shirts, but between the blue-white game, between spring camp, between practices we've seen here, those kids they're good, man. They're good.
I'll go with Quentin Martin, and really for one big reason is I think his pass catching ability is something that could be used in this offense. Maybe it was just a little not wrong, but early, as they say, last year. Because I wrote a little bit about, I think this was before spring camp or during spring camp last year. I wrote this bigger, not a big story, but I wrote a story about Quentin Martin and, his pass catching ability, the kind of tape that he put on at Bell Vernon. Part of the reason why he was such a blue chip, highly regarded prospect in his class was his receiving ability and his fluidity in space, his spatial awareness, and his ability to get upfield and make plays after the catch. And that didn't show last year, but I do think it could. I do think it could this year. And if you're just looking for a change of pace, if you're looking for an opportunity on, 3rd and 6 to, and you're up, say 18 or 20, whatever, against Northwestern, and you're looking for a guy to be able to come in and give Nick and Katron a breather, I think Quentin Martin could be that guy.
Yeah, and worth noting too, like, Quentin Martin and Corey Smith, you don't have to worry about red shirts anymore with those guys. So they realistically could use both of them in tandem. Yeah. Broski Bear, you're welcome for answering the questions. Thank you for asking them and giving us stuff to talk about. One more that we've got here from Connor Woolley. I think I said that right. Johnny, this was one of our favorite topics from the last year. With the smile on your face, I feel like you knew this was coming. But asking for a friend, who's the team in the preseason top 10 that will not be ranked by the end of the season? And who's the team that is unranked that will be top 10? That one's pretty tough to get to, the latter question. I don't know. I don't know if the data supports that happens every year. I don't know. I haven't looked at it. Does it? Okay.
Does, yeah.
So, and then there's, the team in the top 10 that isn't ranked. That happens like every year. I remember us talking about that last year. So Johnny, I mean, look, you're the AP voter. lay it on us. Who's, own up to it. Who'd you put in the top 10 that's not going to be there at the end of the year?
Let's see. This was actually going to be a column idea. But let's just do it here, and I'll expand more later.
I like that.
I think in the top 10, a team that couldn't. I mean, it would be kind of cheap to go Miami because they're number 10.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if Carson Beck decides he wants to throw 1 million interceptions and, just Miami's defense doesn't take a step because they hired Minnesota's defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman. I think Miami's defense has the talent. Ruben Bain is one of the best defensive ends in college football in terms of talent alone. They have the talent to take a step, but I guess I might cheap out and go Miami because I'm looking at everyone else and I'm just I don't see it. Maybe Oregon.
Yeah.
Their schedule is their schedule aside from the Penn State game is pretty easy.
Yep.
I really like Ty Simpson, the quarterback at Alabama, and the weapons around him. Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Kalen DeBoer, and Ryan Grubb's offense from Washington. I think Alabama is going to be really good, but that would be, I think, a popular pick.
Yep.
Among many. Let's go in terms of a team that is outside the top 25. Is that what it is? Outside the top 25 that lands in the top 10?
Yeah.
Give me I want to go either Baylor or Louisville.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Louisville's offense, they bring in Miller Moss from USC, the quarterback. Isaac Brown is one of the most electrifying running backs in college football. Duke Watson also as well, a guy who I think averaged last year 7.5 yards per carry. In Brahms' offense in the ACC, that's a team that could be this year's SMU. That makes the playoff and makes a real run. I also like Baylor in a wide open Big 12. You really don't know what the hell is going to happen in the Big 12. And Sawyer Robertson is one of the best quarterbacks in the country that no one is talking about. So I'll go Baylor or Louisville. Just give myself a little bit of leeway there.
Johnny, I don't keep the same nationwide scope that you do. I tend to be fairly Big Ten focused, so I'm just going to stay away from the team outside the top 25 that makes the top 10 because I'll make a fool of myself. As far as teams inside the top 10 that could fall out, Miami's the easy one just because, Carson Beck, I don't know, whatever. Everybody kind of has the same opinion. Like you said, they're also ranked 10. I think the way that you look at this, though, SEC bias kind of exists, especially when you talk about CFP rankings. A lot of the teams in the top 10 are SEC teams. They're not going to fall all the way out of the top 25. So I'd stay away from a Bama and LSU, Georgia. Those teams probably staying in there. Oregon makes sense. We've got a few people commenting their own opinions. We've got a Miami, we've got an LSU. Interesting. Garrett Nussmeier is a really good quarterback. I don't know if I see that one. Let's see. Wait, Notre Dame. Somebody said Notre Dame will fall out of the top 25.
I think their schedule's too easy. I really. You look at Notre Dame's schedule. Yes, they play Texas A&M early. They play Miami week 1. Those first 2 games of the year. There's a non-zero chance that Notre Dame starts 0-2. But then Purdue at Arkansas could be tricky. Boise State is going to be solid, but just not the same without Ashton Jeanty. NC State, USC, Boston College, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford. I think that's at least 9-3. Mm-hmm. And Notre Dame is not going to be not ranked at number 2.
It's Notre Dame. Yep, it's going to happen. No, I agree with you. I think Oregon, honestly, they lost a lot. Don't have a solid quarterback, with experience. Dante Moore could be the guy. But if you have to pick one of them, these teams seem pretty solid is the thing. I think this could be a top-heavy year in college football. We say South Carolina and Missouri are sleeper SEC teams. South Carolina is ranked. Missouri is not. Fighting Bo Prebulas, we'll see. They could pull it out. That's true.
Job,
yeah, absolutely. We'll see how that goes. But I don't know. It's a fun question. It's probably going to happen. It happens almost every year. We enjoy talking about that one. Let's see. I think we hit all of the questions that were in the chat. Johnny, you've got a chirp from Connor, who I'm starting to think is maybe somebody personally. Thanks, Johnny. I'll pass it along to my friend. He also said Taylor Swift is not a top 5 performer of all time. We don't have to have that discussion here, but I don't know how that's going to make you feel. So, it's not Chapel Roan, so I know you won't get heated. But
yeah. No. Yeah, Connor is he's a former Daily Collegian guy, actually.
Okay.
And a big supporter of our coverage over at PennLive. So shouts to him. Shouts to everyone who dropped comments, questions, etc. We love this. We do this every Thursday at noon, and looking forward to many more of those. But yeah, no, the AP the AP conversation is really interesting because there are going to be teams that just kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
There always are. And I'm really Max. I'm just excited for football, man. I'm excited for football. Kansas State, Iowa State 0 coming up soon. Then we've got Texas, Ohio State. We've got just a ridiculous week 1 slate that we'll be following in the press box at Beaver Stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep saying it to everybody who asks, but like it's been a long summer, long off season of talking hypotheticals that comes with it comes with a job, of course, but it also comes with the fact that Penn State is supposed to be so good this year, has so much returning talent. We talk over and over about just how good they could be, but boy, am I ready to see it on the field and have some actual substance to talk about. I think it's exciting. David Demkowski says, Johnny, please rep a Phillies cap to counter all that Cubs stuff. You're stuck with this now, at least as long as I'm in this apartment, because I like how it looks. So Johnny, you might have to counteract it in some way.
Yeah, I have a Phillies hat literally to my left, but it's just out of my reach, and I don't want the visual of me. You know what? Pause.
I love it. But yeah, I'm ready to see it on the field, man. That's all I'm saying. There it is. Yeah. Okay.
I cannot wait for Red October. I'm very, very, very much looking forward to it. As long as this team decides to play to its potential, which they find new ways to lose, man. They find new ways to lose. I know they've been playing really, really well recently. And Duran is just an absolute electric factory. Like, he's so much fun. They needed some juice in that bullpen. But I'm like low key still reeling from the Diamondback series a couple of years ago. Like, I still cannot get over that they didn't get to the World Series that year.
I know you're talking about find ways to lose, man. The Cubs have been brutal since the All-Star break, and they were just incredible pre-All-Star break. And they're battling with the Brewers in the Central, so it's been a rough couple of weeks as a Cubs fan. I'm not going to lie, but that's taking us off the path of our Penn State show. We had a great audience today. I think we hit all the questions. That we're coming up on 40 minutes. I think that's a good length to wrap this up at. Like Johnny said, we love all of you who tune in and give us questions and stuff. This makes it a lot more fun. We'll be doing this all throughout the season. Come spend your lunch on Thursday with us. If you're watching live, thank you. Even if you're watching on a recording, thank you as well. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You subscribe to PennLive.com. You're reading everything we do, keeping up with the podcasts. And appreciate you and take care.
Go Phils.